Hello everyone, myself Dr. Srinivas Patil, MD Ayurveda. I practice purely Ayurveda medicine in my clinic, private OPD, Sri Ayurveda in Belgaum, which is a North Karnataka's city. And I would like to share my views and my experience in treating COVID-19 patients. So you'll be aware that Ayurvedic physicians previously they were not allowed to treat COVID-19 patients. But in last 3 4 months, there was a situation in Belgaum like cities of throughout India. Belgaum is a very small city, which is a small to mid-sized city, which is of population of 10 lakhs. So there are some experiences of Ayurvedic physicians throughout such cities throughout India when they counteract with the COVID-19 patients. It was not allowed for Ayurvedic physician to treat at their OPD any COVID patients by authorities. And the situation was but out of control. And the people, those were suffering with this deadly disease, they opted for any available alternative way of medicine when there was no availability of bed, when there was a lot of rush in testing, swab test, RT-PCR or any of the antigen test. It was whenever it was available, but there was this lack of availability and a lot of scare in the public. And that situation when when a physician who was trying for conducting a clinical trial for my other products, which were Ayurveda's product, classical products from my company, that is Progen Research Lab. I was trying since March to start with the clinical trials, and when classical medicines of Rasaushadhis, as you know, Rasaushadhis are the herbometallic preparations. When I approached to many of the research centers who were having ethical committee, institutional ethical committee, and even where they can help me for CTRI, that is Clinical Trials Registry of India. It was because of the Rasaushadhis, mainly I was trying for clinical trials in COVID patients. They were reluctant and I couldn't get it. And I was not at all aware that some situation will come and then in my private OPD only I can start getting COVID patients. But as you are aware that Ayurveda is having a lot of discussion about the epidemiology. In the name of Janapada Udvamsa Vyadhi or Janapada Udvamsa, our Brihatrayas, that is the classical texts like Charak Samhita, Ashtanga Hridaya, Shushruta Samhita, the oldest texts of Ayurveda, they have given descriptions of Janapada Udvamsa. That is where they have given the experience of those sages, physicians who encounter with the epidemic diseases. And in that, Jwara is one of the diseases they mention where contagious infectious disease which can be similarly for the viral or bacterial infection which come across with the epidemic diseases. This is the first time every physician who is practicing in throughout world, they are encountering with pandemic situation. That throughout world this COVID-19, that is this SARS-CoV-2 virus, which is a very mischievous and very confusing virus, evolved from China's Wuhan province in the month of November last year. When they come across and then they started encountering many of the cases which can represent from respiratory tract disease. But many of the physicians which may be aware that they are not only a respiratory disease but there are multiple organ involvement and multiple system involvement because of this virus infection. Similarly, when I come across such cases, it was a very innovative, novel experience to tackle with such cases because I was studying since March whatever available material on from the Google Scholars scientific journals from every corner of the world, whichever available, and whatever the pathophysiology or presentation of the cases, case presentation, case series, manuscripts, whichever scientifically valid journals they are given with the peer review outcome, I was referring them, and I was having a theoretical knowledge of those presentations of COVID-19. But when I started encountering with the patients, those were directly started coming to my OPD, which is a small OPD which purely Ayurveda practice I do. It was a very novel experience. I would like to share that novel experience through with this video, because I never used to put any such videos on YouTube regarding the case presentation, but I would like to share my views, my experience. This is a novel experience, and where our colleagues, juniors, those are really interested in treating COVID patients with Ayurveda medicines. Definitely, this will help. It's my it's my opinion. So coming to the part of the pathophysiology, as many of us may be aware, because I would like to just go in a dual way. That is, one modern pathology or pathophysiology of the COVID-19 disease, and the Ayurveda way of presentation of that, where we can correlate both the things. Even presentation of the cases where we can correlate with our Ayurveda's lakshanas, and intervention. Definitely, intervention is a very important part, and managing. When Indian population started getting infections of this CoV-2 virus, it's something like it was assumed that it may be because only a respiratory system will be involved. But my first presentation, my first case, which I got in the, I think, July end. First case maybe July 22nd or 25th, I am remembering. In my OPD only, when I was sitting in my OPD with only mask, without any PP kit. And I come across one lady who is referred to me by my junior doctor, like chikungunya's presentation was there. And but unfortunately it was not lab tested. And when I come across the signs and symptoms of that lady, a mid-aged lady, that is 42-43 years old, and she was having severe throughout body pain, all joints were paining, she cannot even walk, she was having extreme weakness and fatigue, and two doctors were treated her last week, which was diagnosed as a chikungunya. Definitely it was a false negative chikungunya. When I asked for the lab investigations, they said that it is not yet done, and they are already given for the blood for the investigation. So I suggested them to go for the even dengue and Vidal test. Fortunately, all dengue, Vidal and lab chikungunya's antibodies were negative, because as you are aware that many of them were having false positive presentation, and where we missed the diagnosis of COVID. Then I started, because there was no involvement of respiratory any symptom, then I started suspecting the COVID this one. I referred her for the RT-PCR, but the patient were reluctant for going for the RT-PCR. And then if that is not possible, I told them to go for the whole blood investigation, hemogram and HRCT of chest. And in hemogram, I got one particular thing which is very, very important. In every case I have found that, because then afterwards I started checking the patient on the basis of hemogram only. Because hemogram gives a very, very important, because this hemogram, when we read it in a proper way, because as you are aware that leukopenia or leukocytosis, both can be present here in the COVID-19 cases. But when leukopenia is there, that is her WBC count, total count was lesser than 3000. I suspected that it's a viral only. And then we referred her for the RT-PCR, but she didn't do RT-PCR at the first, second day. They went for the HRCT. In HRCT, we found that the Corad's severity score was 7. It was a milder case. It was lesser than 8, we consider as milder. 8 to 15, it is the moderate one, and 15 onwards up to 25, it is considered as the severe case. as there is a gradation of severity is available on the basis of HRCT, this is there. But overall, we can have mild to moderate, moderate to severe, and severe to critical cases in this COVID-19. But on the basis of when I come across that on HRCT she is having, so we come across that there is no presentation of any respiratory signs and symptoms, but her HRCT is having some involvement. So now this is the first case I am just highlighting. Go to the pathophysiology which I read in that. What pathophysiology tells about it? Angiotensin converting enzyme, which is responsible for getting this virus into the respiratory tract. So as you are aware, this virus enters from the droplet infection of the infected person through airborne. It can enter from nasal or oral mucosa inside the air tract, airway, and then it get attached to the mucosal membrane of our respiratory system and enters inside the blood. As soon it enters, within 1 or 2 or 3 days, third day will be a presentation day when person will be having very common, it's a very common symptom. That is the first symptom is fever. Fever has to be there, and fever will be there for at least 1 or very low grade fever, 1 or 2 or 3 days, and then symptom starts. So in this case, there was a fever 8 days back, 3-4 days she was having fever, and then afterwards she has started developing severe body ache, fatigue, headache, all joints were stiff and she couldn't even walk. And on 7th, 8th day she started getting some breathlessness. It was a very mild breathlessness. When I checked for on pulse oximeter portable machine, it was something like 94, 93 was the oxygen saturation. So I come across that she will be having some development in this one, and HRCT was also suggestive of that. So this angiotensin converting enzyme is responsible for getting that virus inside the mucosa of this, and then afterwards there is a confusion. Many of our junior physicians or Ayurvedic doctors, though were trying to get it knowledge from the pathophysiology of modern available, they get confused that it's only respiratory disease. It's not only respiratory disease, it's a blood-borne disease. It's my opinion. And once it becomes blood-borne, it can develop anytime, any type of symptom in any of the organs which get viral load more, from liver to spleen, anything. Because liver involvement is there, you may come across such cases. Spleen enlargement is there, you may come across such cases. Even there is some changes in the pancreas, you may come across such cases. And our hemogram tells a lot of things about this. In hemogram, if you come across that leukocytosis is there or leukopenia is there, we can have some outcome out of it. That is, one is if leukocytosis is there and neutrophils and the lymphocytes are disturbed. Usually this pattern is neutrophils will be higher side, that is a relative neutrophilia, and the leukocytes or lymphocytes goes down, that is lymphocytopenia we consider. That is the NL ratio we consider, that is neutrophils divided by lymphocytes, and the NL ratio is 3.5 onwards, the cases become going to be worse, or that is it is heading towards from mild to moderate or moderate to severe, and provided if the leukocytes are at the higher end. Here we should not get any confusion about when leukocytes are very high, that is WBC count is more than 10,000 or 12,000, and sometimes we come across 15,000, 16,000. So we should not get confused that this is only bacterial infection, no virus is there. Because whenever the bacterial infection is there, ESR definitely will be higher side, but not above 50 or 60. It will be in between something 20 to 50. But when viral infection is there, and especially in COVID-19, I have seen every case is about 30, 35, 40, 50, 60, some cases up to 90 ESR we have seen. So ESR 90, leukocytosis is there, NL ratio is 3.5 above, and there is a disturbances in the platelet counts even. Bacterial infections very hardly will get the disturbance in the platelet counts. So platelet counts, either they will be going towards lower side. Usually progressing case will be giving you the lower side. It's the first week or at the end of the first week, it's a progressing stage of the COVID. where we get platelets are going towards lower side. And then when you get the convalescent period or second stage, when we crosses that second week or second half of the disease, where already progressed disease is there we can have that when management is going on in a proper way, we can restore the platelets. So these are the things which we come across in the hemogram. First is there is a disturbance in the ESR. Second is there is disturbance in leukocytes. Either there will be more leukocytes or less leukocytes, either leukocytosis or leukopenia. Then there will be disturbances in the neutrophils and the lymphocytes. Sometimes lymphocytes will be very lesser, neutrophils goes very high, and eosinophil counts, monocytes, basophils become nil. It is found in very severe cases. I come across one severe case where his relative patient was admitted in ICU. Patient's relative brought me this report. His leukocyte count was 30,000, and you can know that when viral load is more and leukocyte count is 30,000, and NL ratio was something like I told you that 95 to 3. So you can think about NL ratio was about 30 when we are considering that 3.5 is the severe case. Crossing 3.5 is the severe case. In this case, and definitely this patient was not this didn't survive. It was the last stage of that because multiple organ failure was there. But this hemogram can give you a lot of information about the severity of the case. That's why I am sharing this. So like this, many cases we come across, and only reading hemogram is very important. Now, if you are getting a hemogram with leukopenia, that is the less leukocytes count, less than 40,000, and the lymphocytes are higher side and neutrophils are normal. This is the case where we can say that it's a milder case which is not going to progress in a big way. Within 1 week, patient will be asymptomatic and the patient will be having without any complication, patient will get cured very faster. So here, these two things are very, very important. I said that neutrophilia and lymphocytes are relatively, neutrophilia will be higher side and lymphocytes are going down, leukocytes are going up or down. So leukocytes going down, neutrophils are intact, lymphocytes are more. It's a milder case and patient becomes asymptomatic within 1 week, I said, because we have come across such cases. And in another way, when leukocytes are going upper side, neutrophils are going upper side, lymphocytes are going down, then NL ratio is going up, and these platelets are going down, ESR is going up and up. This is the progressive stage where we have to understand that this is now heading towards the inflammation more, where critical reactive protein is a very, very important marker. We have to check for it. Critical reactive protein, as you are aware, that it's a marker of inflammation. Usually we come across this marker in rheumatoid arthritis or many of the infective conditions where it is relatively 3 to 6 is the normal limit of that, but relatively when it crosses 6 to 10, in such cases we consider that it is inflammatory. And this is a very good marker in COVID. In COVID, we come across critical reactive protein is always above more than 20-25. If it is crossing 50, we consider it's a moderate case. If it is crossing 90, like we can grade it in this way. 10 to 30, it's a mild case. 30 to 60, it's a moderate case, and 60 onwards, it can be a severe case. So when I said hemogram is showing that it's getting converted to moderate. So CRP, that is critical reactive protein, is a very important marker I was telling, and which is very important diagnostic factor in COVID-19 management. So why it is so important, I will tell you, because it's a inflammation marker, and the inflammation is very important consideration in COVID-19. If inflammation is not there, there will not be any cytokine storm like condition, which is a complication and where it's a life-threatening event in the COVID-19. So if that is under control, it's a simple thing. If CRP is under control or CRP is not increasing, the case is not going to be severe. That is the only thing which we have to consider in the management of pathophysiology. So these particular two things, hemogram, the CRP, plays a very important role in the primitive investigation of COVID-19. Secondly, that RT-PCR, which is swab test, which is a confirmative test for the COVID-19, which is where directly we come across the presence of virus in the swab. So, but that is also very funny thing that we come across more than 35% cases shows a false negative case, where patient is having suffering with some viral like thing. Symptoms are there, hemogram is showing something, or even CRP is also higher side. HRCT is also showing some severity in that, and when swab is done, swab test gives a negative in that. What to say in this? Because that is a failure, technical failure things, which is throughout world it is happening. It is considered by all experts that this may happen and this is happening. So in that case, we consider those cases like a flu-like illness or severe acute respiratory-like illness, where this similar virus is also responsible for the such conditions, but only virus is not found in the swab test. That is the only thing. But in that, management part is very important, because as we are lacking in management, that's why the severity and then ultimately there will be a lot of mortality in that. So if management is successful, there is no problem and there is no issue of cared out of this. So managing these conditions with Ayurvedic medicines, knowingly all these conditions is very, very important. That is my point in telling. So when we come across the hampered hemogram and increased CRP, and where to correlate this condition with the pathophysiology. As we are aware, the modern pathophysiology tells about that this is in two phases COVID-19 case get progress. One is first is immune hemostasis driven, second is inflammation driven. So first, as I said, in first stage, that is in first week only, patients lymphocytes are getting higher side, neutrophils are normal, and leukocytes are at the lower level, that is leukocytopenia. And that case will be having no progression, and in 5 or 6 days it will be retarding, and patient will be asymptomatic, patient get cured by own itself. And that is the way the patient get managed by its own immune system. That is the immune hemostasis, what we consider, where the fever is there, little cough is there, little body ache or headache is there. Sometimes some people will lose tastelessness will be there, and then smell loss will be there. Such conditions comes in the milder cases, and there we found that immune hemostasis phase is the only responsible, where CD4 and CD8 like cells get increased, and our own immunity system will manage the condition. There is no need of any medication. Patient get cured by himself, and there will be no complication further. Suppose in this there is no managed things by medication, or even the patient has not developed the immune hemostasis. Second phase starts, that is the inflammation driven. And here in this inflammation driven phase, there are three major defensive action we come across by our body. There is a scope of intervention. First defense line will be by our lung only. Lungs will be having, there will be, as we say, in HRCT we found that ground glass opacity we found, or pneumonia-like condition, or pneumonitis will be there. What exactly it is? When this virus load enters in the blood, there will be a lysosomal destruction of hemoglobin. Heme gets separated from the hemoglobin, and that heme will be having a free radical-like condition. This is available in many of the peer-reviewed journals. That heme, which is a free radical now, which is not having any capacity to fix the oxygen and supply to the tissue, that becomes a free radical. And our lungs first come across such things, because when our blood goes in the lung, our lungs tissues, they come across such type of blood is there which is not getting fixation of oxygen in the hemoglobin, and it tries to inflame itself and try to catch such blood in itself only. And there pneumonitis occur because our alveoli get inflamed, and they try to check that blood by themselves. In this is the first line of defense of the lung, where we get the pneumonitis there, where there is no collection of fluid much, but there will be a blood collection inside the interstitial cell. Then second line of defense, again there will be a patch-like thing will be happening. There will be a interstitial cellular patch which is getting all this micro lysosomal destructed blood attached itself, and that gives a ground glass like opacity, where we found that in HRCT or the X-rays, high resolution X-rays, we found that there will be involvement of the patches, or there will be hazy patches with some air spaces and the lymph node present in the lungs, and that is the second line of defense from our lungs to catch or avoid such condition, because this type of blood is incapable of carrying oxygen. That condition is called as hypoxemia, and that hypoxemia condition may lead to some problem with some our vital organs. So lung try to avoid such condition first, and that it itself get inflamed first, and that gives the first presentation of SARI like something, like severe acute respiratory illness like something, where hypoxemia get converted into hypoxia, where lung is incapable of getting sufficient oxygen, and then oxygen saturation in the blood and even in the lungs get started falling, where usually a normal person will be having oxygen SpO2 saturation in between 95 to 97, 98. Here in this condition it starts getting falling down, and that will be a condition where hypoxia will be there, which is called as happy hypoxia, because slow development of hypoxia will be there. It's not a sudden development, and that terminology is called as happy hypoxia, where day by day slowly there will be less oxygen saturation, and once the patient reaches up to 80% of oxygen in the blood, there will be slight breathlessness, and then there will be need of oxygen from outside, and there the severity of the disease will be progressed. Third line of defense will be there again from the body. If in these two conditions, if we are not managing, our powerhouse liver get generated here, liver get involved here, and there ferritin will be secreted by the liver to catch hold of these free flowing radicals of iron, and it tries to store it into a liver wall, iron river wall, what we consider, and liver get little inflamed here. Liver's enzymes will be secreted more, and there will be elevation of SGPT, SGOT like enzymes of the liver. Even there will be little higher bilirubin will be there, which is found in such cases. Many of us must have come across that. And when all these things are there, that's why there are two major markers in second or the early stage, that is critical reactive protein, the ferritin, other than the hemogram. So consider that first go for the hemogram, which is hampered, which is showing some changes which I mentioned you, that is leukocytes count, neutrophils count, lymphocytes count, platelets count, ESR. Third one is second is your critical reactive protein, that is increased critical reactive protein can be a very important marker. Third is the another earlier marker is the ferritin. So if these three things are found, hampered hemogram, increased critical reactive protein and increased ferritin, it's a confirmative test of either it will be a COVID-19 clear cut, or we can say it's a flu-like illness, or we can say it's a SARI. Physically, we can say that patient is having some symptoms like fever, body ache, fatigue, headache, restlessness, or even smell loss. Some patients will be having suffering with loose motions, where respiratory involvement is not more there. Viral load is more in the GI tract, and there will be a loose motions like condition. I come across 2-3 conditions like that, 2-3 cases like that. So whenever such symptoms are there, we can say it's a viral pandemic only, where there is no confirmation by RT-PCR, but still it is because of this SARS-CoV-2 only, and their management is very necessary. Now, what management contemporary science is giving? Contemporary science or contemporary way of management of COVID-19 by authorities, health authorities of Government of India or even WHO has given some guidelines. As per that, it is going on. It's a symptomatic line of treatment. We have to think that what exactly symptomatic. Where they have mentioned some antivirals like favipiravir or remdesivir. They have mentioned some antibiotics like azithromycin or doxycycline. They have also mentioned that anti-inflammatory anti-inflammatory agents like dexamethasone or methylprednisolone like steroids. They also mention some anti-clotting agents like heparin, low molecular heparin, or even the aspirin like agents. They also mentioned that some antipyretic and painkiller like paracetamol or other lower NSAIDs like that. But usually NSAIDs are avoided in this. NSAIDs, injectable NSAIDs, definitely we have to avoid, because as this is not only respiratory involvement, it's a blood clotting like things, which is a very minute level clots of blood will be there. We cannot see any hemolysis like condition in the blood, but there is hemolysis going on, and where it may increase with the clottings, blood clots will be there, which may give a emergency condition like embolism. So pulmonary embolism or blockage in the very vital arteries of heart, like there will be a sudden arrest of the cardiac failure will be there, or even there will be blockage in the cerebral arteries and there will be a hemorrhage. We have come across some certain cases. So these will be the very, so like this condition, even contemporary science has given the protocol like we can use the anti-malarial agents like hydroxychloroquine, which can maintain the pH of the blood and which can avoid the lysosomal restriction of the blood. So these are the contemporary line of treatment, but as they are helpful in certain conditions, but it's not hard and fast management. Even all experts consider that. Only two things they agree, that steroids and oxygen supply. So non-invasive oxygen supply helps a lot. And right now this is the only thing which is going on throughout contemporary way of managing the COVID-19. But when we think about the management of this COVID-19 condition symptomatically through Ayurveda, what Ayurveda mentions or what we have to consider. If you consider the way of contamination, way of infection getting infested to the patient, and even the presentation, all symptoms and signs which we come across, Ayurveda can definitely consider this is the Janapada Udvansa like way of spreading of the disease, where the Jwara is there, which is mentioned, and Jwara that is fever. So Jwara is having a broad meaning here. Any infective conditions which can be because of the Agantuja external. Agantuja means external factor. So here external factor is the virus. So any Agantuja Krumi or Agantuja factor which is going to give infection to the body, that is under the heading of Jwara it is mentioned. So definitely Jwara is mentioned in Janapada Udvansa, and its line of treatment is also mentioned. So along with Jwara, what we are coming across, there is a Shwasa and Kasa. That is cough is there, then dyspnea is there. So this Shwasa and Kasa already mentioned in Ayurveda. So line of treatment of Shwasa, Kasa and Jwara if you consider, and in that also emergency conditions like Atyayik Chikitsa, which is mentioned, that is emergency management of Shwasa and Kasa, where Tivra Shwasa and very Daruna Kasa will be there. Such line of treatment is also mentioned in Ayurveda. So only that applicability of such line of treatment in COVID-19 has given definitely a very successful way and without any complications. That is very important, because only symptomatic we should not consider. It is a systematic and multi-systemic involvement is also there. So Ayurveda considered, or any Ayurveda's medicine is not a single system acting. It is multiple tissue, multiple systemic acting medicines always. And such medicines in very less number of medicines can manage this. I have come across and I have successfully treated more than 100 cases in my OPD with only Ayurvedic medicines. Few of the patients, they opted for the contemporary first, and then they tried to go for the Ayurveda. So they got the relief very faster. Even certain cases, moderate to severe, I would like to mention certain cases with morbidity present. Morbidity like they are diabetic, mid-aged or old age. Like for example, mid-age like from 50 to 60 or 60 onwards, or up to 70, 75 age or 80 age also. Certain cases I come across, and where they were having a diabetic, they were already having hypertension. They were also having few cases will be with previous cardiac involvement, like they are undergone angioplasty or bypass like surgeries in past, and they were suffering with the diabetes. So certain conditions, such conditions are they considered as the very vulnerable for the high mortality rate in COVID-19. Such cases also we could do, or I could do in with only management with only Ayurvedic medicines. And here I would like to mention that Rasaushadhis, herbometallic preparations, are having a lot of upper hand with other medicines which are available in Ayurveda. So such certain conditions of Shwas and Kas, I used to have some experiences, past experiences. For example, I would like to quote here sarcoidosis, one very typical condition of lung where fibrosis of lungs gets involved here. I have in past I have treated 2-3 cases from 2011. 2 to 3 cases I have come across such cases, and I used to manage with them Rasaushadhis, and definitely where contemporary science has failed there, and they were saying that only 6 months to 1 year the lifespan of the patient was there, and their oxygen saturation was very low. They used to be always on the oxygen supply. I could manage these cases for 5 to 7 years or 8 to 10 years also. So such experience was there. On that basis of experience, on that experience only, I could gather a courage of treating COVID cases with the involvement of the respiratory system, where I used to treat them with the Tamra Vasma, and then one yoga is there from Rasatarangini, which we have got the approval from the drug department, Ayush drug department of Karnataka, and which is available throughout our distributor chain. Tamra Sindura Yoga, which is from the Rasatarangini, that is having Tamra Basma, Rasa Sindur, and Kantakari is there. So these 3 medicines are there in the Tamra Sindura Yoga. So this especially acts on the Dharana Kasa and Shwas. So in Rasatarangini it has given a prashasti of it. That is, they have certified it in this way that it can even manage conditions of cyanosis. It is clear-cut mentioned in the Rasatarangini. So such description is available, and which is enough for us, for that this lead is enough for any pharmacologist to know its pharmacology and where it can be applicable. So definitely I thought in the same way, and I started with managing this with Tamra Sinduradi. Along with that, one Jwaragna Kvat I used to use, and I am using in the COVID patient, that is Bhunimbadi Kvat. Usually Bhunimbadi Kvat which is available in the market is usually a Amla Pittahara, which is of different this one yogas. But in here, Jwaragna Bhunimbadi Kvat, here we have Bhunimba along with, that is Kalumega, along with that Guduchi is there, Katuki is there, Musta is there, Shundi is there, then Duralaba is there, and Parpati is there. So it's a combination of 7 drugs, and which is very best in Vata Kapha Jwar. It is mentioned in Bharat Bhaishya Ratnakar. So that along with Tamra Sinduradi is the very common prescription I used to use in all these conditions, from mild to moderate, moderate to severe, and even severe cases also. We could see that 250 milligrams of Tamra Sinduradi Yoga twice a day. On 6th or 7th dose, patients oxygen saturation, which has already fallen down up to 88 or 85, started retarding or reviving back from 85 to 90 in a span of another 5 to 7 hours. So there was no need of some external oxygen supply for this. Certain cases where I found that in one lady where she developed the SARI and there was no bed available from any of the COVID centers. So that time we try to manage it at the home only. We have instructed the relatives that they manage the oxygen cylinder from available source, and we calculate the tidal volume, and we have put on the 2 to 5 liters oxygen supply, which she was having 78 or to 74, up to 74 saturation was there. But in a span of 24 hours, she could revive again, and she again then within 4-5 days she again regained the oxygen saturation in a proper way. And important is without any other contemporary medicine. It was only with this Tamrasinduradi Yoga and this Bhunimbadi Quat. Bhunimbadi Quat I used to give 10 ml twice, thrice, or 4 times a day. And this Tamrasinduradi Yoga 250 milligrams twice a day. Every 12 hours we were repeating 10 to 12 hours. In very severe conditions where patients weight is more than 90 kgs, we used to give Tamrasinduradi every 8 hours or 6 hours, and repeating. And even if the case, if the patient's weight is less than 40, or in children above 14 or 12 or 14 years, where their age is for 12 to 14 and the weight is lesser than 40 kg, we used to give only one capsule, that is 250 mg per day. So like that I manage it. And very proud to say that only one case we lost in more than 125 cases. Only one case we lost, because that case approached us very lately, where saturation was up to 65. So that time only we were having that patient is not going to be surviving, but we try to manage, and patient could be managed for 3 to 5 days, because the patients, when we approach us, relative approach us, his hemogram was showing this NL ratio was more than 25, and CRP was 80, and ferritin was more than 1200. We went for another two this one markers, that is D-dimer and the LDH, and LDH was showing that time it was 1800, and D-dimer was 3000. The D-dimer is the marker where it's a marker which shows the clots or clotting agents is more in the blood. So usually in the varicose or deep venous thrombosis, or where post-operative pulmonary embolism like condition occurs, where there is the D-dimer will be increased. So these are the another two, this one D-dimer and the LDH, that is lactate dehydrogenase, which is also marker of the damaged tissue in the lung. So they were higher in that case, and we lost that case. We could not revive that, because he was cardiac patient. Patient age was something like 58, but he was cardiac patient, operated last year for angioplasty, and his sugar was uncontrolled. He was on the insulin, but after giving insulin also he was having a sugar more than 550 random. So that time, that case we lost. That is the only case we lost, which is out of hospital, which was not hospitalized, and there were no bed available that time. So unfortunately we lost that case. But other cases, even severe than these cases, one patient I come across where I use this another yoga from Satarangini only, Loha Tamra Suvarnadi Yoga, where Loha Bhasma, Tamra Bhasma and Suvarna Bhasma in equal quantity, 250 milligram of capsule. That is not 250 milligram, the active agent is something like 45 mg, 15 mg is the Suvarna Bhasma is there, which is a very high dose. We have used that in that case, and that case is having 3000 LDH. HRCT was 21 was severity, and that patient was also morbid with heavy sugar, and that is sugar more than 350, and he was on the insulin. But other markers were under control, like CRP was not so high, CRP was something like 40, but the condition was very critical. The patient was, within 5 days, patient has developed the bed sores like condition. So that is something like where we are losing the patient's tissues, where less blood supply there, and the less oxygenated blood supply. So that was the marker. But after starting all these three things, that is Bhunimbadi Quat, then Loha Tamra Suvarnadi Yoga 1 OD, and Tamra Sundaradi Yoga 1 BD, every 8 hoursly, patient got healed his bed sore within 3 days. We have that that LDH, which was 3000, we came across within 3 days it come to the 1000, and D-dimer was 3000, In 4 days it has come to 1200, and ferritin got normalized within a span of 3 days again. So after 25 days again we repeated all hemogram. Then we have come across his even we are tested for his SGOT, SGPT, creatinine, all these things. They come to normalcy. Only D-dimer was little higher when we checked for his COVID antibodies. So we have gone for the ELISA test of COVID antibodies, and IgG, IgM were present, especially IgG was markedly present. And unless and until we did this COVID antibodies, we are not stopped the treatment. So such type of experiences we got with Ayurvedic medicine, especially with Rasa Shuddhi. And I appeal to all my junior doctors, those who are already treating COVID-19 patients with like contemporary line of treatment along with Ayurveda also. Only Ayurvedic medicine along with Rasa Shuddhi is definitely at the higher end, and upper hand is there. Only that we have to have a confidence, we have to take some little risk, and we have to boost the morale of the patient. Boosting morale of the patient is very, very important here, because I come across whenever there is this RT-PCR swab test comes positive, patient loses hope because of the scarcity in the society. Even patients' relative they get, because they first found that they will be in they are susceptible for the infection, because they have come across already with the patient and the patient is in the positive stage. They will be having a lot of scare that they may also, but it depends on the city, that is cyclic threshold, what we consider the virus which is present in the patient's body. If it is having a cyclic threshold, we consider that it's more than 24. Patient is usually not contaminating other patients very easily. But if it is lesser than 18 or 17, patient will be having lot of chances of spreading it. So in home isolation, I used to always tell patients that put that patient into home isolation where his all belongings, washrooms and all should be properly sanitized. His using of. So lastly, just to summarize the talk, COVID-19 can be easily manageable from Ayurvedic medicine, and with confidence, with little risk, we can manage it at the OPD level, at home isolation. From mild to moderate or moderate to severe cases also we can manage. But in case of severe conditions where oxygen saturation goes down and the patient requires oxygen, their hospitalization is required. So my personal opinion is that if beds are available and the availability of contemporary line of treatment is there, we can go for that. But along with, if it is integrated, it's a matter of research again. If it is integrated, if the treating doctors are allowing us to use these Rasa Shuddhis at their hospital, and if it is a joint venture along with Ayurvedic Rasa Shuddhi Vaidya and a treating physician, that will be the best line of treatment which we can. Because all government authorities, agencies, they are trying hard. They are hats off to them. They are trying hard for getting the vaccine very faster. Because I come across this havoc of this virus, which can do a lot of mischievous things and confusing things in any of the system of the body. Not a single system is, because I come across one case where gynecological symptoms are there first. We consider it's a gynecological condition where patient develops a non-specific leukorrhea and the dysmenorrhea-like thing, and ultimately within another 2 or 3 days the fever starts and the patient will be having COVID symptoms in that. So it's a very confusing virus where need of vaccine is definitely yes, but when it comes, that is possible. Till there is a time to get the vaccine from researcher. We are welcoming that step, but till that, the suffering patients, those who are already on the verge of development of complications, and there will be a lot of threat to their life, we have to manage by any means. My personal opinion that integrated approach should be there. Government has to think in this way, that thank God they have already allowed Ayush department for management of mild cases with certain line of treatment. But not only mild, moderate to severe also we can manage very easily, because it is already developed science. It is already there. A lot of things are there. It's already developed science, and a lot of things are there. We have to just test it. Test not in the sense that right from scratch we have to start again from phase 1, phase 2 study, because we have already lost a lot of time in this, and we have lost many cases also. So whatever available medicines are there in the market, definitely we can think about it. Ayurveda is not something like it is not at all tested. It is a time tested thing what we consider. So our classics which are there, classical books which are there, they tell many things which are already tested. They are time tested one. We have to consider it blindly. We have to have faith on them. Unless and until we properly prepare the medicine, that is definitely I can understand that medicine preparation is very important thing in this. But the line of treatment which I have mentioned in the Ayurveda is definitely time tested one. So my personal experience is this. It has given us a success and the fame when we properly prepare medicine in a way the text mentions without any cut shorts in them. But the line of treatment which already mentioned by Ayurveda, we have to consider as a lead, and definitely it's a good lead. All pharmacologists, those are modern researchers in there, they have to read Ayurveda in this way. This is the whole world, globalization of Ayurveda is going on. Whole world is looking towards Ayurveda, and that is not the this is not the time now right now that telling that it's a heavy metal. Heavy metals are having a lot of toxicity. See, there is a lot of processes are mentioned in Ayurveda itself. Those processes are to just nullify the effect of toxicity, and wherever the toxicity is there, it is also mentioned in Ayurveda. We have to read it and follow it as it is. They are also given the antidotes for them, so you have to follow it as it is. We cannot keep your eyes closed and say that it is heavy metal and it's completely door open or door closed. We have to open the doors again, and we have to accept it is a hidden medicine which is not explored till today. Whole world has to be notified with this particular thing, that this is a very potent branch of medicines branch which can give the things which is not at all seen till today. Our ancestors have seen that, but modern science, modern society, intellectual community has not seen it. So they have to explore it in their own way, but we have to accept it. Heavy metals, arsenic like minerals, we have to explore. Now I am hoping that whole world is going to accept the Ayurveda as it is, with all its branches, with Rasashili definitely. I would like to congratulate all those Ayurvedic physicians, those who have tried hard to manage the cases where they were not allowed, they were not having very less infrastructure with them, and still they could manage and help the people and society. Keep doing it, we'll do it, we'll do the good work continuous. Jai Ayurved, Jai Hind.